give opportunity to new students. Some new student, please. Okay, so let me just, I'll say, because some of you may be not very familiar, we sometimes say that, migration is people going from one place to another, and they live there, and they go for career, they go for job, and relatively they stay there, for a substantial period. You can differentiate migration with tourist. People also can go and to other places as tourist, but migrants are, they go for job, they go for career. Okay, somebody is raising hand. Okay, so you can raise hand also. I think Sahana is raising hand. Sahana?
Sir, I would like to add something about,
Yes,
as you
please.
are asking about the migration. So what I understand, migration is actually the movement of people from one place to another place for the purpose of livelihood, career, and some people under this category we can count refugees as well, or development induced uh, migration as well. So there are certain streams of migration within migration as well, which occur due to the internal conflict, international conflict. So these categories we can also count as people who come under in the category of migration.
Very good, very good. I was trying to give a very brief, initial definition. You have given more, in-depth definition, and actually we'll go with those kind of things we'll cover in the causes of migration and all. But thank you for giving those perspective. So migration, as Sahana mentioned already, there are many causes also, but it can be semi-permanent when we talk about circular migration. It can be permanent when over the period, if it goes beyond the nation state, it can be diaspora also. So these are so many areas, and this, as I mentioned already, this is a very important area when you talk of contemporary, any issue talk. I think we cannot even differentiate migration from any issue today you talk. You talk about politics, you talk about investment, you talk about education, you talk about anything today. You can link migration. It's such a pervasive area. Okay. So when you talk about why migration occur actually, Sahana already mentioned migration occur for many things. It can be for any forceful migration. It can occur because of war. It can be, it can happen because of disaster. It can occur positively also because of, in search of job, in search of, people go for better career and all those. But when you see migration, we talk about globalization. Many of you, contemporary time, this word is so important, globalization. Okay, we talk about things, cultural globalization, globalization of capital. But when people migrate from one country to another, they show the human face of globalization. People now from every country to every country, people are going. Earlier it was also happening, since the time immemorial, but it is happening very frequently now and very widespread. Earlier you find some, targeted destination. For example, if colonial powers are there, Britain, like English people, Dutch people, French people, they used to take to their colonies. But now people are going free will, with force, whatever, to multiple destinations. Sometimes you cannot predict where they go. Okay. So today, if we see total population of this international migration is 3% of the global population, which is roughly around 281 million. Okay, this is UN DESA statistics, and The stock is annually growing in 2.4%. There is up and down, like during COVID-19, it was reduced. It was many migrants were coming back home, and those kind of things are very challenging also sometimes. And each country actually experience migration differently. If you see China, they have a different kind of history than India, because India we have all kinds of history. Okay, like before even colonial time, we had traders, and so many people they went as traders from Gujarat, from Tamil Nadu, and all. During colonial time, it was coolie migration initial phase. Then post, after second half of the colonial time, you find like free passage. People also went with free will to many places, especially after 1930s or so, when the indenture system was abolished. Then post-colonial, you find again a kind of migration which are mostly termed as brain drain. Okay, so there are various type of migration, and when you compare with Chinese, Cuba, and all, many times in Russia and all, many times it is conflict and ideological war. So there is no kind of only it happen with a kind of people go with free will. And there are many ways to understand this, migration. Broadly, there are at least five. There may be more explanation, but at least five major theories which explain how this migration happens. Okay, and these are very important. I think all of you should be very attentive to know these theories actually provide you broad canvas about how migration is happening. It can give you some kinds of analytical tool to understand the global migration. One is neoclassical, equilibrium perspective. In that, you see many theorists like Ravenstein and all, they say, even Todoro and many other, they fall into this neoclassical equilibrium perspective. They said that, there is a equilibrium model where there is a more labor, they go to, countries which has less labor. More capital, it attracts more labor. There are capital intensive countries which are very rich, but they don't have people, they don't have labor. So they always import labor from other countries. Mostly this kind of thing happen like, in the colonial setting, you find colonies after the abolition of slavery, they don't have labor. There is a huge shortage of labor. So how to run this colonial capital economy? So that time indentured labor is introduced. Even today, if you see most developed countries, you say even Europe, USA, Australia, Canada, even in Asia also, you take Malaysia, Gulf countries, many countries where they have capital, but they don't have people. So this is a equilibrium model where you find one side pulling, another side pushing. Push-pull can also happen because of other thing, like at career and other thing you have, sometimes disaster at home, sometimes unemployment at home can push you. But overall, this is a equilibrium model where labor shortage place attract, people from labor surplus place. And broadly, if you see divide the globe, it can be global south and global north. Okay, where global south is having lots of labor. Okay, and this countries actually there is no such margin actually, but global south are mostly third world countries, developing countries in Asia, Latin America, and all. And global north is especially the developed countries, especially in Europe and USA and all this. So you find there is also equilibrium. Many people from global south, they go to global north. So this is how the things are maintained. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult for countries to sustain, because human capital is very important. We see today, if you see many countries in global north especially, they don't have people, to in their healthcare, because most people are average age is 50. Many countries are aging in Europe and America, so they don't have people in many sectors. So if people from Asia and Latin America, they don't go, they'll collapse. Okay, so this is the thing happening. I'll be talking more on the demographic in other section, how the demographic scenario is changing now, and next 30-40 years it can be a big problem if we don't manage properly the demographic side. Then the second one is historical structural theory and asymmetric growth. It is especially you find mostly in Marxist political economy or world system theory. This is also almost like similar, but here the thing is the capital rich countries, especially the developed countries, which Andre Gunder Frank sometimes mentioned that core of the globe. There is no single globe core. There is no single periphery also, but especially if you divide the global economy into two sides, one is the core, another is the periphery. Okay, like USA control the Asia, and in fact that is the one of the core of world economy today. And there are multiple cores also, like in Asia, you find like GCC countries, they are pulling, they are the center of Asia, and even the world migration is happening to that side. So this is another theory where they divide world into core and periphery. So in that, the core actually creating a dependence syndrome, and periphery is always depending upon them. They control everything. Capital, they control the technology, they control almost everything, so that even our mindset they control. We culturally also they hypnotize people. So core has the immense power to control the periphery, and this is another model where the world is divided into a system where core, like the developed countries, control the periphery, the poor and developing countries. Okay. Then the another theory which explain about migration is transitional migration theory. It is like demographic transition theory and changing pattern of mobility. And as I mentioned, many places, there are aging population. There are no working youth, that working class population. So how they will survive? So this theory actually create a kind of, again, demand and supply, where aging population who cannot work, they depend upon the young working class population, and that drives the migration. Okay. So I'll stop here a little bit just to see if you got the point, or we have explained three theories. So you got those, how they explain the migration or not. If you understood, okay. If you have any doubt, please ask me. If you understand properly, then I can go to other theories. Please, if you have any question. We have explained three theories. One is neoclassical equilibrium perspective. Then second is historical structural theory. Third is transitional migration theory. So all this theory explained about migration. Any doubt in this three? Okay. So I'll go ahead with other. Okay. Then social capital chain migration and network theory. This is another theory where actually migration is also form of a network. Okay. if some family member go to other place, they make it self-sustaining. People go, your relative go to USA, they take another group of people from your family or from relatives or from the place. So that is how migration becomes self-sustaining, self-perpetuating. So network theory, social capital, you all know social capital means your own relation, friend circle, kinship. These are all called social capital. Okay, so that become a kind of it helps in perpetuating the migration in simple way. Then migration system theory. This is also similar to that, where migration system theory, reciprocal, which is a reciprocal and dynamic link between migration and development. So you have kind of, migration is a system actually. Whenever people go, they create development, they create more demand, they again drive migration, and that goes and on, and network is formed. So it's self-sustaining, it's self-sustained, as I mentioned in the earlier theory. And this also, it can be, this migration system theory is very much complementary to other theories you explained. Okay? So, if you see all this migration system theory, it will link with people, transnational communities. Yes, Diksha Pandey.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
So I had a question. So we looked at 5 theories through which we can look at migration, but all of them are very global north based. Like the theorists are all global north, from the global north. So do we have any theories from the global south which particularly look at migration?
You see, these theories are, if you see global south and global north, it's a kind of an explanatory category. Maybe if you go to any migration theory, mostly you find European theorist scholars. So that way, I don't think global south, global north in theory, but it's a kind of, explanation. I don't know how to categorize this global south and global north in terms of theory.
No, so what I meant was when we are using a theory, we use a framework, right? So that framework is very Eurocentric in nature. So in that perspective, I'm trying to ask.
I agree with you. When you talk about social network theory and all, it may not be Eurocentric, but there are, like when you talk globalization, yes, I agree with you. When you talk about concept like developed country, I agree with you. These concepts are loaded with Eurocentric, Eurocentric kind of thing. But it is, European views are there in every almost social science. We cannot help it, but there are no counter theories we can. Actually, micro theories are there, like social capital and all those can explain better. Okay, but most theories you find the scholars are from Europe and USA only. So we cannot help. I agree with you. But if you have an alternative theory, you tell me. Okay.
Right, so I'll read up about it. Thank you, sir.
But these are all grand theories we have, that explain the overall migration flow, counter flow, and whatever happening. Okay. So when you talk about migration, there are 2 types of migration, as Sahana already mentioned. There are voluntary migration, involuntary migration. When you talk about voluntary migration, this is in contemporary time, voluntary migration is large proportion, but still there are involuntary migration. I mean, the voluntary migration, when you talk about students are going to other countries, this is a voluntary migration. Okay, people going for a job out of their own decision, that is voluntary migration. Okay, and so many migrations are voluntary in contemporary time. Unlike earlier colonial time, mass migrations are actually involuntary. due to colonization, due to unemployment, due to any kind of war, this thing, the voluntary migration, that portion is relatively increasing after post-colonial time. Okay, so as I mentioned, people go with for marriage, for employment opportunity, for opting for even sometimes political system, better education. All these are voluntary migration. Especially people those are going to mostly USA and all. Large proportion of them are voluntary migration. Then involuntary, you already know, this is a forced migration, conflict induced, development induced, disaster induced. And this is a very large group and precarious group. You find, contemporary last 2011 onwards, this segment also creating lots of, impact. Even COVID-19 also impacted the migration which are involuntary. Okay, Syrian refugee, Afghanistan, that crisis, and Rohingya crisis, all are, very much, impacting our migration policy. And these are all involuntary and very much contemporary, you can find. Okay, so even smuggled people, you find today, if you see internal migrant, you just contemporarily, you can find this Josimath, Uttarakhand. Many in Uttarakhand you can find. Many are involuntary migrant. They come to Delhi and other places because of environment crisis. Bangladesh also experiencing environment crisis. So these are all we are experiencing now every day. Okay, and if you see refugee, this is you see this map. You can see the almost it is either refugee going to other side or not, means any destination country, almost every part of the globe is impacted. I think some countries, they don't accept refugee like Australia, but all parts of the world you find refugee from one side to another side, they're going. Okay, Europe is full of from Syria to all African countries, they're going to all parts of the Europe. You see the direction. Okay, so the refugee population is about forcefully population is 65.3 million. It is a huge number you can find. Okay, and 3.2 million is their asylum seeker, 21.3 are refugee, 40.8 million are internally displaced people. So this segment is also very huge. Okay, so where the if you see the involuntary migration, I'll talk about voluntary, but involuntary is very important also. There are Syrian refugee, Afghanistan refugee, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Congo, Myanmar, Iraq, Colombia, and Central African Republic. So these are all the area, and you see the time happening, 2011, 13, mid 14. So very contemporary, you find all this, involuntary migration. And due to war, you also recently, Ukraine war, and many places war is happening, civil war type and between countries, and that is also displaying. And now I don't know the statistics about Ukraine, so that also we can add here. So that is another area we have to see. Okay. Then when you talk about international migration, there are few terms we use like immigration, illegal and undocumented migration, and diaspora. I'll ask a few of you, even if you don't, see that your answer is not correct, don't feel, bad, because just I want to make you to use your common sense. Okay, don't think you should be expert at this level. Just say what is immigration and immigration. Anybody can say what is difference between immigration and immigration? Just feel free so that we'll, yes, Diksha.
So, for example, if I go from India, I'm emigrating from India, and wherever I'm going, my destination will be where I'm immigrating to. So I emigrate from India and I'm immigrating to, let's say, United States of America. So
Okay.
emigration is movement from one, like from my country, and immigration is when I go to another destination.
Fantastic, fantastic. This is simple way Diksha already mentioned. So what is undocumented migration? Anybody can say? Undocumented. So I asked, Sahana was very active. Sahana, you can mention what is undocumented migration.
Sir, I believe that when people are moving from one country to another country without having any documents, without any legal recognition, probably without not having passport, visa, and through illegal channels, then it might be considered as undocumented
Yes.
migration.
Usually what happen, undocumented, like refugee, you can say, or these forced migrant,
Yes, yes.
mostly this segment are undocumented because many of them, they don't have any document, work visa or passport, or any entry, kind of document. So they're all illegal, undocumented migration. I really thank you, Sana. And what is
Yes.
diaspora? Yes, Sangamitra, what is diaspora?
So basically, people who live in another country away from their home country, and they have socio-cultural interests in their home country as well as in the host country that they're living in right now.
Okay, I think our students are very good. So I can little bit add on diaspora because it is a emotional, social, and sometimes psychological. Okay, emotional also psychological, and cultural, whatever you can say. They have that kind of attachment with the home country, which can be imaginary or real. Why I'm saying imaginary? Because many countries that cannot come here, many people they cannot come here just because they cannot afford, like people from Trinidad, Tobago and all, there are this segment of people, mostly they think about India emotionally and culturally, socially in imaginary form, okay? So this is also kind of diaspora and they have migrated and they cannot come back. So, but over time, we are saying anybody going outside of India or outside of their country, they are also diaspora. But this, strictly speaking, diaspora is permanently settled. Okay. So, if you talk about migration, international migrant and diaspora, the difference is the migrant can come back anytime. Diasporas are more or less settled. Okay. So these are the terms used. So let me
Sir,
talk.
I have a question. So when you are saying diaspora are the people who are permanently settled in other countries, a part of country of origin. So NRIs will come under the category of diaspora, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, and the normal people, like if I'm migrating to other country after spending few years, I will not be become the part of diaspora until I'm going to settle there permanently.
Yes, that is true, but the difference is actually minimized because you are also creating a migrant network, diasporic network, which you can be prospective diaspora. Like the migrant, mostly chances are there they'll become diaspora. Okay, if given like if there is a conducive atmosphere to settle with the green card, like Australia and Canada, USA, you have chance of settling there with the, permanent citizenship. So this can be diaspora, but there are places like Gulf where you cannot settle actually. You'll be always, outsider, migrant. So those kind of people, they are partly, prospective diaspora, but not fully diaspora. They are in the process actually, because many go to Gulf and they twice migrate to USA and other after building their social capital. Okay, you must have known many Malayali people, those who have gone to Gulf in 1970s, 1980s, and afterwards also. They have gone from Gulf to other country now, with after building social capital. So not necessarily they'll be a migrant for the all the time, but they're in the process of diaspora. Quite a good number of them, they're in the process of diaspora also. So this is the difference. Okay. So international migration, actually I used some old statistics, but now it is 283 million and more also actually. Okay. So if you see the global distribution of people, international migrant in Europe, North America, and Oceania, international migrant account for at least 10% of the total population. And by contrast, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and Caribbean, fewer than 2% of the population are international migrant. This is inside the country. Okay, you find less people from Europe, North America, and Oceania going out compared to Africa, Asia, and Latin America. As I mentioned in Global South, Global North, this can help you to understand why people are going from this side to other. Because the opportunities are more in Global North. Okay? Nearly half of all international migrants worldwide were born in Asia. So Asia is the largest, you can find this area geographically, large number of international migrants are in Asia. Northern America hosts the third largest number of international migrants, followed by Africa, Latin America, and Caribbean, and Oceania, and all this. If you see, there is a, North America like USA and all, they host a large number of, migrant population. Same also, all put together, all the Gulf countries also, they host a quite significant of migrants. Okay. Then if you see the migration pattern, you find out migration is mostly from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. In migration is happening to North America, Europe, and Oceania. So if you see, the USA have the largest foreign-born population, which is 40 million in 2010. Now it will be a little more. I'll update that data, but it will be like maybe 100 million now, maybe around that. Okay. International migration in Europe, if you see, especially in the past, a source of immigrant to the net immigration location. Actually, Europe was, if you compare colonial time to now, actually Europeans were migrating more that time, before 1950s. Okay, and they colonized the world. Now they drive the migration from other part to their side. So this is what happening. There is no constant, this thing. Always migration is so dynamic, You see, Ukraine was a place where people used to go there. Now people are going out of Ukraine. You have seen 40,000 Indian students are in Ukraine. They are studying. So also from Africa and other places. So now people from Ukraine, they are going to other places. So things are changing due to many factors. Okay. Then international migration in Africa. See, both Africa and Asia, they are, influenced by colonization. And historically, you find lots of African, they have gone to colonies. Africa was a colony also. And after abolition of slavery, many Asians have gone to Africa, like Mauritius, Trinidad, Caribbean, Trinidad, Tobago, but many places in Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and all, you find lots of Chinese and Indians are there. Okay. So they have gone. Then Africans also, if you see, they have gone after colony is over, they gone as worker to other countries. Like you find many African people in USA and all. You see Obama and all, they came from Uganda. Even the Kamala Harris, twice migrant, they came from Uganda. I think Uganda, some place. Even if you see today's, Prime Minister of UK, he came from another country, twice migrant, So like that, again, African countries. So Africa, post, independence, there is a brain drain type migration, and many places because of conflict also, like Rwanda and many countries, Eritrea, Ethiopia, these are all conflict, Bosnia, due to conflict also, so many people migrated. So if you see again in Asia, the patterns are different. Large number of people, they go for work. Largest source of migrant are from South Asia and Southeast Asia. Okay, so this overall, Asia and Africa and Europe, if you see, these are the pattern. Okay, within Europe also, you find some countries are like Italy, if you see, almost they are the highly migrant, out migrant. At the same time, ironically, Italy also receive almost 50% in migrant. Many countries from nearby countries, they come to Italy. Italy people go outside. Same thing happening in Punjab and even Kerala in India also. Not many people from Kerala, they go out, and that vacuum is filled by Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, even Assam, Orissa to Kerala. Same thing happening to Punjab. So these are all kinds of demand, supply, and the kind of vacuum they create. And migration always create a kind of equilibrium. If some migrant, they go to international level due to their social capital, and some migrant they go to nearby places because they don't have social capital. Okay, so this is all, so many dynamics are working to drive migration. When you talk about international migration, we have 4 important issues. I'll be talking about that. One is economic development. Okay, so let me, before I explain what kind of common sense you get when you talk about migration and its linkage with economic development. Because today, last 30 years, almost 1990s onwards, migration is also seen as a development factor. Okay. Before that, it was considered very negatively as, kind of migrants are like their problem for our society. They are also kind of, they're taking our job. They're also considered as unruly, criminal and all. But over time, we find the, kind of thinking developing around economic development. So what kind of economic development you associate with migration, both host country and home countries? It's very easy, common sense you can use. Anybody can say? Yes, Diksha?
So for the home country, it comes in the form of remittances. And for the host country, they find cheaper labor. Like when people from India go to the Gulf countries, it's cheaper labor and skill labor, because when you talked about brain drain, a lot of even from India itself, we see a lot of big names abroad which are Indian, right? So that is a sort of brain drain. So that is that contributes to the development for the host country. And even for refugees, like countries like Jordan use refugees to gain aid. So a large part of the economy works on the aid that they get from UN, HRC and all that. So, I mean, it's a political tool as well in their economic development. So that way, I guess.
Okay. Any other area when you think of migration and development, economic development? Anybody else? please participate, because this is the way actually you feel active also. You feel that your ideas, sometimes you can give out of way many ideas, not which are bookish or whatever we read, but sometimes, you can just think out of way. What kind of economic development you can think? Suchitra, yes, Sangamitra.
Sir, some countries have a more older population compared to the working people, number of working population. So migration sort of helps those countries to have more number of people who can work, and that sort of in turn improves the productivity and leads to economic development.
Very good, very good. See, certain things are actually caught across, like whatever Sangamitra told, it can be a demographic factor, but also economic factor. Okay. So somebody has written in chat, boost the working age population. Yes, yes, very important. Same thing Sangamitra mentioned. So working age population. Okay, we have Dr. K. Ranju. Ranju, you give little perspective. We'll be very happy because you have been working in a place, Qatar, and which actually benefited from migrants. So can you give some of your thought if you are having this audio with you, Ranju? Harjinder is there, our old student. He's working on many research. Yes.
I was enjoying your class. I thought of just singing in between.
No, actually, it will be always good. Actually, I feel happy. Sagapitra, Diksha, Suchitra, and Sahana, they are participating. I feel more encouraged.
Yes, I want more of them to participate, ask
Yes,
more
but
questions.
you are also, you are on the spot, you are recruiting people, you are part of the, you yourself is a, migrant, and also at the ground how things are, shaping migration and all. So you can give little 2-3 points at least.
Yes, true. That's very true, Sadaji. But then there are a lot of things to say about economic development, which through migrants, where it's not only the brain drain and the brain gain, but more than that, more than the remittance and more than all of these things, we should think about how the diaspora had been a very important player, even in the politics or even in developing relationship between two different countries. For example, India's diaspora played a very huge role in its development of economic development as well as the political development with US.
Yes.
That had
Indirectly.
that had even opened the IT field to a long march. For the next 20-30 years, they still made our people around there. In the Gulf areas, Gulf areas, we had always this problem of having the unskilled labor more than the skilled workers. So mostly from the economic part of development is on to the remittance. But then there are a lot of improvements Reliance industry has taken up by employing people who had been engineers with Aramco in their refineries. And that has, over a past around 5 to 6 years, has improved a lot in the production. So those kind of, knowledge transfer back to India. Normally, knowledge transfer, what we see has been that migrants had been taking their knowledge and then they had been using it in the country of destination. However, here it was a reverse knowledge transfer has been seen, from especially in the field of petroleum, digging and all those things. And there was another important question that came in from, I don't know who it was, but then it was really good to have theories from global south. We were all focused more onto the north. And those things in the coming class, I will definitely explain more on the global south, why we focus more the theories on global north and not on the global south. There are certain reasons, because I didn't want to interfere that time.
No, please don't think interfering. It's all adding.
Yeah, because those theories needs to be, it is true that we should have added a little more theories onto the global south, but then I will explain this one in a later stage, because that's the time when they will understand more, because these theories are not a baseline theory. Let us understand that the theories which we are saying are not the baseline theories, but these are the theories that will help us understand more about migration. So when we start benchmarking on certain areas, when we go down into the courses, we had been benchmarking certain area, certain specific migration. That's the time when we will bring in this global south migration, how it works, and what is the difference between global north migration. And even there is south to south, north to north, north to west. A lot of migrations are happening. Each migration route has a theory behind it. So if we are going to mention only the theories, it will run around another 3-4 chapters. You know that, right?
I feel happy for Diksha asking this kind of question, which
so that is important.
challenge.
She asked a very good question, and I was impressed too. But then she has to wait for a little more classes. Then only we will explain that one, so that she can, she can understand more detail into it. Why we focus on to the north more than the south. So anyway, you can continue with your class.
No, actually, Ranju has already told many things, but one thing I put together, even I think Sangamitra also mentioned, how working class productivity leads to economic development. So one way we think economic, political, cultural, demographic, they are all cut across also. There is no
one more thing I want to discuss is diaspora. I don't know who was the person who came up and asked NRIs are a part of diaspora or not. That was another very good question. In fact, diaspora theoretically was being defined that anyone who has been holding a permanent resident of another country, who had been resident elsewhere, or national, or holding a nationality elsewhere, has been considered as diaspora. But then those notions has changed over a past 5 to 10 years, when they've started having a lot of influence on the economic development and political aspects of their own nations. That's why Indian diaspora consists of NRIs, the people of Indian origins, and people of residents of other countries who himself or his ancestors had a passport in India. So Indian diaspora has been, we never differentiate outside these three groups. We always take these three groups together. Even in the Pravasi, there was more, if you look into them, the participants will be more NRIs rather than the permanent residents elsewhere.
No, many came permanent. I just had a meeting yesterday. So many people came from Trinidad, Mauritius and all. They are honored. So actually there is a significant group coming from other places also.
True. So this diaspora also, Indian diaspora is a very, Indian diaspora has nowadays become a generic term rather than a definition. Because because we are the first diaspora, if I'm not wrong, we are the first diaspora who started considering the NRIs and PIOs and the OICs and all together into that one umbrella. So whereas in many other, for example, the Europe diaspora never considered their people outside their country still holding the UK passport. They still don't consider them as a full-fledged diaspora in them. They always consider those who have already settled or transferred their citizenship elsewhere. So those are there, and it was a very good question.
No, to answer Diksha's question about global north theories, this is where Ranju also mentioned now. We are first, nation to incorporate even anybody going out of India as diaspora. But if you see European side, like Jewish model of diaspora or any, they only consider the permanently, those are out of their nation state. Okay. So now we are actually, the diaspora concept has evolved last at least 30 years. If you see William Safran to today, okay, Tololian, you find that lots of evolution happening. And one unit is devoted for that. You can see how the diaspora as a concept has evolved over time. So this is what I think you can see, very variety of issues we explained, like economic, political, cultural, and demographic. So as I mentioned, in economic, we can also think of investment as major issue. And this is where China actually gave import, China became an example where China actually used South Asia diasporic network and became one of the, developed economy in Asia and one of the leading economy in the world. And if you see remittance, India is leading now 100 million this year, 100 billion it crossed this year. I think just 2 days back, finance minister announced India's, remittance is 100 billion. So these are all examples of how diaspora economic contribution is very important. Then we have seen how the Silicon Valley, Bangalore, and China about diasporic contribution, Bangladesh remittance. These are all example of economic participation of diaspora. Then when you talk about political aspect, then you find many area. You find role of diaspora is very important. Whether it is functional or dysfunctional, sometimes diaspora can be a very dangerous thing. It can lead to terrorism and all. What happened, in Afghanistan? If you see the Afghanistan diaspora actually helped the Taliban, okay, in a kind of cultural revolution and all. And same thing happened in many places where diaspora can be dysfunctional. Okay, there are also positive side where they can bring democratic revolution and bring very good policy, bring better understanding between countries. There are also positive side. Okay, but this is we cannot see in one way. Okay, cultural aspect, if we see, the world is actually becoming, because of human flow to different places. They take their own ideas, culture, dress, culinary, everything. So that process become, wherever they go, that become kind of multicultural, hybrid culture, then creolization. These are all happening. And today, if we see in India, if we see the biggest, one of the biggest, you can say, service, supply, it is Bollywood movie and the ethnic products also. Apart from our other thing there, because the consumer base is increasing abroad, lots of diaspora people are there. They consume your culture, and that become biggest export after software and all this thing, the Bollywood movie and many other, even your all religious books, pickles, so many things you can categorize in that as a cultural product. So then the last one I'll be talking about demographic. You all mentioned already there is a demographic side of this, especially where the people are aging. They create a demand for more working class people. That's why the demographic shift also happening. But there is also, if we see the future of demography, you find a lot many things may happen in future. So, like for example, many Asian and African countries, Nigeria and all, next 20 years it is projected their population will be world's fastest growing population. So they will have very young population, and on the other side, Europe and even China, Japan, many countries within Europe and Asia also many countries will become aging, and they will have problem of working class population. So this can change the scenario in coming few years. So that is why we also need to think in a new perspective how the future we can plan it better. Okay, up to today we couldn't manage properly migration. If we see many places it is not managed well, though we have been talking about migration governance and all, but future will be more challenging because of the population growth and demographic challenges. Then there is another area which is actually very important, is feminization of migration. You see, earlier you find not many females used to go as independent migrant. Okay, last 40, 50 years at least, you find females are going as student, as worker, and many that is different from going as housewife or something, because this single woman with their own decision, free will, going to other place, it is a cultural change, it is a individual, aspirational change. So many things are happening, and this is a new area to look into actually. And this way, we find Philippines and all many countries which have substantial number of their migrant are female. They have been managing very well, and in terms of their education system, legal system, we have to see how to learn from them. So this overall, if we see, I have covered the issues, I have covered various aspects of migration. Now, if we see, I'll be concluding with few policy suggestions where whenever you talk about migration, we also think about how to address them, because it's such a challenging area. So one area which we talk about is migration management. It is managing not the inflow, but also outflow. Both sides you have to manage. And in contemporary time, this inflow, outflow is very much, challenged because of so many events, For example, if 9/11 happened, immediately there will be visa restriction and all. COVID-19 happened, war happened. So migration management became very challenging today because of certain big events happening, big challenges are happening. So we have to see how to manage that, and certain area we have to abruptly, like you can see the example of Ukraine, 40,000 students coming back to India. You cannot say tomorrow they'll go back to Ukraine. There is no certainty. So you have to manage either to give education to them within India or to some other countries, because each carrier of 40,000 students of only medical and engineering, and this area we have to think of those angles, and migration management is a very dynamic that way. So then when you talk about other aspect like how to manage migration, there is a migration database, knowledge network. So these are all very important, because today when you talk about migration governance, it is no more, many countries are thinking of enabling, facilitating rather than managing, just, regulating. The concept of regulation is very bad actually for migration. It actually hinders the migrant and it creates a problem actually. Country like India, if we see, we need more kind of enabling situation, kind of supporting system rather than regulation. Okay, so that way, like if we want to think of better managing, we should have better migration database, and we should also target which country we should, send people, so that people can do better, job, and they can, do better. Their skill demand will be better. They can earn better money, and as a result, they can send more money back home. They can be more productive to host and home countries also. So these are the new way to think about migration, because if you think of any migrant, if they are underutilized, it is not good for host or home countries. So you have to see where people go and how they use their potential. For example, many people go to Canada, though the country is welcoming them. Engineers going Canada becoming taxi driver or housekeeper. So they don't use their skills. Sometimes they become underutilized. Okay, so you have to target or manage migration such a way that their potential will be utilized. They can earn better money so that they can, do better for the home and host society. So these are the new way you can think of migration. And even this, we talked about demographic projection. The challenges are more for India now, because our country is now #1 country in terms of population, and it will grow another, at least 40-50 years it will grow. So you can think about the challenge, in terms of resource, in terms of providing employment, in terms of anything you can think of. We cannot manage, population if you don't think in terms of how to manage migration. And precarious and kind of forceful migration will be a disaster. It can be challenging for country. Social unrest will be there. So we have to think that way also, how to manage migration. Okay. And also there are areas like legal and other support. Today, if you see lots of violation of human rights, and even in Ranju can mention, even the Qatar and many places, we don't have support system, legal and other, for the people who are exploited, and especially the female migrants. And all this, we need to have better support system legally, socially, and many other area. And this also we have to think about the area which actually become the placement provider. Like you see, Gulf situation may change over time. I was with Ranju in October, and we saw one big restaurant is managed by robots. Okay, and only 2 people are managing the entire area. So that is what another challenge will come to many places in Gulf, especially. Many places are becoming robotics and becoming, they need less human resource. So how will be the future? Today we can think of, Gulf is, welcoming many migrants, but tomorrow things may change because of robotics and all. So we have to think those areas, and considering all this demographic challenge and all this, it is projected that healthcare can be biggest recruiter. All we talk about aging and all this, so that can be, and even mental health and many, overall the healthcare requires lots of workforce. That includes not just doctor, caregiver, and many other area that become a largest recruitment area, which is already, happening. I think today, if you quantify the sector-wise, healthcare is the largest supply from India. And these are all area of concern today. We have to manage well. Okay. So, in a conclusion, I can say the approach should be more, development centric, because migration is a win-win situation for both home and host countries, and this can be planned better. As we grow, as we develop, as we evolve, migration should be a central place for every planning. And today we talk about some new concepts are coming. In fact, migration diplomacy is a new concept. Last 5-6 years, it is becoming very popular. So in migration will be a central place in all diplomatic area, because every country almost having migrant. either going out or coming in. So in this context, I just want to mention there are lots of challenges in the policy area, in every other area also, economic, demographic and all. So we need to think migration governance in a new perspective, where we should consider how the future will be of a country like India, which is actually, we talk about demographic dividend, having lots of youth population, young population, and how will be the work scenario of next 10 years, 20 years, where IT revolutions are happening, robotics are happening, and how will be the situation of the world when, the demographic changes are happening, especially many countries becoming aging and all. So with this, I'll stop here, and maybe we'll invite few questions. If you are not feeling bored, then I'll explain a little bit about assignment and project also. Okay? Any question from any of you? I think those who have not asked question, please feel free.
Sir, this is Vidisha.
Yes,
Good
Vidya. Yes.
Sir, could you elaborate a bit further about how, the equation between companies vastly undertaking robotics and other technologies, and also how, the equilibrium between the equation between that and the human resources, the huge amount of human resources that the countries are getting through, the host countries are getting through migration. And also because the global scenario is changing fast with online marketing development agencies. So how this would affect that?
Yes, I'll give you some insight, but you all have experience now. Vidisha, can you mute your mic?
Yes, sir.
You see, everyday life you are experiencing. If you go to any mall now, you go to any mall, increasingly you find, kind of automatic, auto system, where humans are less now. You go to little developed countries, it is more automated. In India, still you find, big mall, still find some people, but in Australia and many other, I think, I didn't go to Qatar, many places, but Australia, I could find many big malls. There are only few people because everything is automated. Okay. So in that kind of scenario, how you think, I think we need to develop certain kind of, human resource, which are actually should have little bit IT and other. In every sector, IT is entering. Okay. Supermarket, every sector, paying bill to everything. Okay. So that is what we call, very dangerous sometimes, because it's sometimes unpredictable also, which we use the word gig economy. Okay. So we have to manage, human resource such way that it should not be a, danger for us within the country, because we will have to deal with many people now, being the largest country in the world. So coming to your question about, you asked about automation or robotics, I think it can give multiple challenges, and it is already we can experience. Okay, India is experiencing now highest unemployment. Okay, you all know very well, public, in the public forum, debates are coming. There are growth happening, but no employment happening. So this is a big challenge within India, which is actually having huge population. Okay, in USA also, people, you see many of them, they're anti-immigrant because employment is not happening the way it should be. They think immigrants are taking job. Not that is correct partially, but the other side is automation is also happening within every country. So we need to have skill upgradation. That is one way to address the thing. And also sectoral policy, like where the destination country which are actually creating demand in which area, and we have to give them training accordingly. And we have to think of a global, kind of manpower. Within India, I think we can only recruit maybe 30% of the entire workforce, but 70% you can think of going global, because you have a huge, actually, if we really employ people, maybe maximum 30% can be properly employed. If we recruit 50%, maybe many will be underemployed. 70%, like our agriculture, you can see, many just, they don't have proper recruitment. Maybe 1 month, 2 months in a year, they do work. Okay. So that is what is going to happen if you don't manage properly, you don't consider how to, balance your supply demand, you don't upgrade the skills. So many areas we have to address. It is not a single thing actually. We have to address from our education system, skill development system to overall, recruitment, planning and everything, create awareness about many destination countries. Actually, which, as I mentioned, many because of people going to golf became, everybody can go golf easily. But when you go more and more, then you get exploited, you get less, salary and everything. So you have to think of going to new destination, and how to go there. You need to know language, you need to know about those countries. One cannot go to France with English knowledge. They need to learn language of French, French language. One cannot go to Portugal because most of the European countries, they don't speak English. So you have to think those angles, cultural, language angle, skill angle, and everything. And if you think those angle and a global kind of supply demand, outlook we should have, and many times you have to also think of how to address the challenges like COVID-19, war in Ukraine, war in Afghanistan crisis. Then sometimes happen like in the USA, find recession that can, stop your flow of migrant. So all those things should be factored in the migration governance. It's a very complex thing, but I think this is the need of the future. Okay. So I think if there are any question you can ask always in the next class. Any unit you can ask, any class you can ask. But coming to our assignment, I'll say in a briefly I can say, I have given all instruction there. Okay. You read that, and you can timeline also given, how much word limit also given for short answer, for long answer. And if you still have any issues, you can please feel free to ask. You can write to me through WhatsApp or whatever. Any class come, I'll explain. So that is with regard to assignment, and all assignments should be handwritten. Okay. If you can send by email also after scanning, but it should be handwritten. So this is basic instruction I thought I'll give you. And so far as project is concerned, project, some of you are familiar, but some of you are not familiar. This is a very important area actually. Many of you can add certain value to your entire, PhD diploma program by doing certain project. Project will give you lots of insight actually. Whatever you learn from these courses, you can apply there. Okay. And it will be interesting. It will be challenging also. It will be interesting also, because you can, suppose you are working on remittance, you can also study in your area some labor, you can interact, how they are spending remittance. You can prepare a report, and out of that insight will come whether remittances are used productively or they're all used just to survive. Any kind of person, you become a policy expert over time. Okay, so projects are very important if you want to be a professional. Okay, this project will add value to your this degree. So if you want to do project, all the guidelines are available. You read that, and I advise you work in advance, because last moment what will happen, you will just you cannot find the logic, how to start and how to conceptualize things, and will be in a big problem. So better you start in advance, so that you know how to do project, and it will be very interesting actually. Any other thing? Yes, Samavitra.
Sir, for the project, are we supposed to collect primary data by ourselves, or we could rely on secondary data as well?
Secondary, primary. Suppose you want to work on Bollywood movie and it's diasporic element. If you are from literature, you may be interested in that. Just watch few movie, see how diasporic things are there. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Suppose you want to do field work, it's also important. If you are from social science background and you want to do something in the field and you have access, then no problem. Some people can do through email also. Okay, Diksha?
Sir, I'm working with refugees right now, so I do have direct access to. Can I do my project on refugees itself?
Yes. Actually, some of you, those who have access and all, I think you start from now, and I'll be very happy, because these are all area you can produce very good work. Don't think of a degree only, because this kind of project you can publish it also. You can actually even think of a larger project in future, because you have access, and when you do MA or PhD, some of you may think of doing PhD. This will be very helpful to do some kinds of project, get knowledge of methodology, and easily I can help you if you do in advance. In the last moment, I'll be under stress, you'll be under stress, it will be a problem. So those who want to do project, start from now. Anybody else?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I'm Nirmal. Sir, in the case of project, the most of the books are not free to access. In the case, what can we do to get access to those books and all?
See, project, actually the kind of free books available also very huge. If you don't get, you just share with your WhatsApp group, will also give you so many books. Okay. Those who don't get, don't worry about that. You'll get so many books related to that. Methodology books, so many are there. If you want to work on any community, so many books are there. On refugee, any specialized area, so many books are there. Okay, you all help each other. Okay, share online, you will get so many books. I think the online repository is so huge, you will get so many books. Sahana, you want to ask? Yes.
Sir, if people choose to do project, so in such case, will we get any mentor for our project? Individual mentor sort of thing?
Sahana, there is some audio problem from your side. Once again, can you ask, or you write here?
Sir, is it audible now? Is it
Now it
okay?
is audible. Now it is audible. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm thinking, will we get any mentor for our project work?
Any sample?
No, mentor means
Yes.
mentor
Sorry.
to guide
You
us.
get mentor, either I can do, or you can even take Dr. Ranju or whoever already, some of them, they have completed PhD. They can inform,
Okay.
they can guide you officially. Okay.
Okay, sir.
We'll have, I'll share some list of people who can guide you. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And you all of you get mentor, but you start, if you want to do project, start it early. Okay, so anything else, or I'll stop here. We'll meet next Saturday. Okay. Okay. So bye.
Sir, hello, sir. In the case of project, we should have to first give a proposal to you, sir.
Yes,
get-
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sir.
See, selecting proposal, I already gave example. If you have access to, like some of you, like Dikya and all mentioned, you have access to refugee, and you are working on refugee, take those area, and somebody interested in literature aspect, film aspect, there is a vast, vast area to work on. So don't confine to anything. Whatever you feel good and you feel that passionate to work on. Okay. Okay. Any
Okay, sir.
concluding comment from you? Otherwise, I'll stop here. Okay. Okay. We'll meet